Most of the time when we're saying we're following our heart, what are we really following? Our emotions. Do not confuse your heart with emotion. They are not one and the same. I'm just following my heart. Yeah, you know how many dumb decisions I've seen people make on that fucking statement? There's a few statements that in our society right now that we use as cop-outs to get out of everything. And one of them is this feigned idea of empathy. Or like, I'm really this open-minded person, but I'm not, right? So pay attention to this. This is pretty interesting. Pay attention to any group that is trying to insist or enforce that you have an open mind. You may find it very interesting that a lot of the people that vocalize how important it is that everyone has an open mind and not judge, watch how many of them are the most intolerant, judging people. And then ask yourself, well, if there's truth in this, why are you showing up so differently than what you're saying? Why? Because it's tied to trauma. The trauma loop keeps you in this binary way of thinking. Again, going back to what I said before, if you have an issue with alcohol, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna control the environment, I'm telling everyone to be this way. If you had two sons, one's gonna be an alcoholic, one's not. Why? Because you're informed by your trauma, by your pain. What you resist persists, right? A truly free-minded person doesn't freak out about whether somebody else is or not, okay? So there's a few cop-outs in our society that crack me up. One of them is, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. That's the woo-woo crowd. I love that shit. Now, for those who know me, I get it. Organized religion isn't my favorite flavor either, but they're not saying that because of their disdain for religion. They're saying that because if I just say I'm spiritual, now I'm not really accountable to whatever I believe. I can just rock it. See what I'm saying? I'm super open. I'm just good with whatever. All right? That cracks me up. Another one you won't get fucked with if you say this. I'm just following my heart. Now, the best lies are 60% truth. The reason that one works is nobody wants to question whether or not you're following your heart, but let's be real. Most of the time when we're saying we're following our heart, what are we really following? Our emotions. Do not confuse your heart with emotions. They are not one and the same. I'm just following my heart. Yeah, you know how many dumb decisions I've seen people make on that fucking statement? No, you're following your emotional fucking energetic setup currently. And guess what your emotions want? We know this. We teach sales. What emotions imply? I want it now, whatever it is. Sense of urgency, must make a decision now. What feels good now? What makes me feel good now? Does everybody get that? This is why there's an old saying, sleep on it. It's what wise people used to do before they made a decision, especially if they're emotionally compromised, because they realize your emotions immediately imply, I want it now, I need it alleviated now. If you're ruled by your emotions, just go hang out with a 2-year-old. If you don't understand what I'm saying, go hang out with a 2-year-old and this will become very clear to you. Oh, this is what being ruled by your emotions looks like. Unfortunately, there are full-grown fucking adults who behave the same way. They make it sound like it's something else. Oh, I'm just following my heart, or, you know, my intuition. Like, no, fuck no. No, you're not. The other one is totally open-minded. You can believe whatever you want. All opinions are valid, right? Sounds good, except for to your point, they don't actually think that, right? They just talk like they see it that way. Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, totally. I mean, we're all open to our own opinions, and I don't really want to share what I actually believe, but that's cool that you believe that, bro. Get the fuck out of here. It's not how we grow. We grow by iron sharpening iron, challenging each other, digging into thoughts, talking about things, talking through things. But then you gotta be willing to what? Disagree with someone. Ooh, our generation loves to disagree with people anonymously. Hell yeah, we'll get on social media, we'll get on Reddit, and we'll just fucking rip people apart. Why? Because there's no consequence. Nobody knows who we are. We can go fucking be a keyboard warrior. Right? Because in the real world, you get fucking punched in the face for some of the dumbass things that people say. I would like to suggest to you that is psychologically not healthy when you start to believe you can get away with running your mouth saying whatever you want when it's anonymous. It's the same reason I have a big issue with anonymous review sites or anything that's anonymous. There's no consequence on your end. You can say whatever the fuck you want. But hey, at the end, be skeptical, but listen. Seek to understand, but don't believe it just because somebody's saying it. Do the work for yourself. And one of the favorite questions for me to ask is, how could this be true? And remember this, principally, the best lies are 60% truth. The closer something is to being true, the more believable it becomes. You understand this, it'll be much harder for you to be manipulated by other people. It'll be much harder for people to lie to you. And then you'll stop listening to the news because you'll realize that it is all fucking dribble. It is absolutely bullshit. You start looking at titles and then you look at stats and you're like, how does this pass as information? We know there are absolute truths. How do we know? Here's a simple way to know that absolute truth may exist, must exist. Does not mean that we're necessarily capable of seeing it. That's a different argument. I would say that we are. But how do we know mathematically absolute truth must exist? No, it's just simple. If I say absolute truth does not exist, what did I just do? I just created absolute truth. No. Just stay with that one for a second. That statement demonstrates that absolute truth, therefore, delta, must exist. What we're inquiring about is the human's ability to perceive truth, which is highly impacted by our stories, our experiences, our memories, those things which keep us from seeing the truth. Remembering is what I would say. So my implore to human in general is to remember. You could call it discover if you want, but most of learning is really unlearning, all of the bullshit. Remembering who you are. When you remember who you are, everything begins to change. So I'll end with this. If you went to bed tonight and in that time of sleep you had a dream in which you were robbed, when you woke up, would you call the police? Therein lies the peace of God.